Welcome to Wisdom of the Way with me, Sai, a podcast to inspire, enliven, and explore Camino wisdom and life wisdom. Join me from my home on the transformative Camino de Santiago in Spain as we share stories and learnings with incredible pilgrims and teachers from all over the world. Hola, you're with Sai, and I am so excited to be launching and sharing what has been a long time inspired vision, and that is to share wisdom, lived experiences from the way, from the path, from the Camino. And so with all of my heart, welcome to this journey together with Wisdom of the Way. And this first episode is amazing. It's an incredible place to start. It's really, really full of insights, full of deep wisdom, and it's a conversation with my teacher, Anand Mehrotra, the last time that I was in India, studying there and also walking a pilgrimage. Actually, it was because or from this conversation, this interview, that I felt inspired, and literally a few days later walked out the door with some sandals and a sleeping bag and not much more on a journey 300 kilometers in the high Himalayas. And there's some other sharings or videos that you can see from that experience. But I'd like to introduce you to Anand. Anand is often referred to as a living Himalayan yogic master, an international thought leader. And I've had the blessing and the privilege to study with Anand for over a decade in India, various times, many months over these years. And it really has been an incredible journey. What I love about this conversation and about his teachings is that they really transcend what we think of and how we imagine yoga in the West. And that is, and you'll see and you'll hear in this interview, is really from an inspired space, which is just relevant to anyone who's interested in growing and to live from a deeper place. And that we realize that life is a pilgrimage. And this is what Anand speaks to. He speaks to the synchronicity and why we encounter it more in the Camino and what it actually means. Also, these experiences that we do encounter, what they're really asking of us, how we're able to navigate them, and remember that it is this perfect metaphor for life, that we're always on the pilgrimage. Wherever we go, we're always on the way. We don't know our destination, where we may arrive to, what we may meet on the way, but it's the way that we meet those challenges or live those experiences. And he reminds us, which is such a powerful thing, that the most important thing that we can do and what really has great impact on our experience is our state of awareness, our consciousness, and how we can develop that and work at that. And it's a beautiful reminder. It's really inspiring. This conversation took place in a teacher training. It was what we call a satsang, which is a wisdom talk. And so there were 50 odd students doing their 300-hour yoga teacher training and the community there. And it was a really inspired conversation. I think you'll find if you're taking notes, you could write a quote from every second sentence. I loved it. I love hearing and listening back to it. And it really is, it's just relevant for life. So whether you're walking on the Camino or you're returning home, and there's some great wisdom about how we can return home and integrate these enlivened experiences that we have along the Camino and through life, and how we can really bring them to be those integrated experiences that go with us as we continue the journey. And we're reminded that we never go backwards. We're going forwards on this journey, on this pilgrimage through life. So hope you enjoyed, and if you do, it would be great. We would really love if you could leave a review, share some stars and some words, and share it with a friend. It'd be great that we can bring this podcast to others who are really interested in sharing the learnings from many people around the world. And we are blessed that here people are coming past our door every day and sharing their lived experiences, their lived wisdom. And we would love if you can share this with the world. So enjoy, and please get in touch. I would love to hear from you if you have any feedback. It would be always a pleasure. Many blessings. Enjoy this transmission and this sharing of wonderful wisdom. Anand, thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity to have this wisdom meeting. And I'd like to start with a question around synchronicity. Synchronicity is something that we've all experienced on our journeys, whether it's the Camino de Santiago, coming here to India, or taking a deeper inner journey. And for those who don't know what the Camino de Santiago is, it's a pilgrimage people take. Many people walk 800 kilometers across northern Spain to a place called Santiago. And it's a journey within, really. And a lot of people, so I've lived on the Camino for 8 years, and a lot of people will constantly tell me that they experience so much synchronicity, more than their normal life. Anand, could you explain for us the nature of synchronicity and why we might experience synchronicity more in a journey like the Camino?
I think synchronicity is experienced by an individual in a specific state, right? The whole experience of synchronicity is a gaining of unity, where a seeming innocent event, which seemed to be to an outside observer might not be related, but to the experiencer, it seems connected and related to something much deeper. So it really points to the consciousness state of the experiencer of these events, where nature or the extended reality really shows up as an ally. And the language that existence speaks is through these gestures. In these moments of synchronicity, you really feel the individual feels supported, guided. Right? It has a meaning which goes beyond coincidence. Because synchronicity, these experiences are shared. It's not a isolated phenomena. So there is a very clear validity to it, which is verified by the people's experience from all different backgrounds, belief systems, different ages, and across vast spectrum of what the synchronicity points to. But the underlying in all these experiences is an experience of gaining unity, a feeling of that you are part of something greater. You are not an isolated value of awareness, but rather your localized awareness is connected to a greater field. And I think this ability to detect synchronicity requires a particular state within the individual. In the absence of that ability, the individual cannot perceive that as synchronicity, for it is the experiencer who is the experience. So naturally, when individuals are on a spiritual journey or on a pilgrimage as the Camino de Santiago or on a yogic journey, they are more open. They are leaning in the direction of growth. They are leaning in the direction of transformation. So they're in a more heightened state. It happens also with people. Let's say they experience someone passing in their life, and then they could have a certain event which could point to a present beyond the physical identity. So we see there is often in people there is an accompanying heightened state, or at least these leaning in the direction of greater unity. And so these experiences always will be more when the individual takes on an intentional journey. And when it becomes they're leaning in this direction of growth and they are leaning in the direction of evolution, they will find more and more of such events occurring in their life. It is not that all of a sudden there are more of these events. It's just they have developed the requisite awareness to detect unity, to detect the grace which has always been there, that how they are part of the whole, and they have now the ability to see the message. And so I think it's the appearance of synchronicity is a confirmation for the individual that I am on the right path. Invariably, people who have this experience will always have a feeling, a corresponding feeling arise in them that, oh, I am on the right path, right? And that becomes the antidote for this chronic hesitation humans struggle with, right? This self doubt humans struggle with, this lingering feeling of not being where they need to be. Yes or no? And so synchronicity is the ability to detect synchronicity, is a natural part of progress. It's a pointer to growth because you are gaining unity. You are able to detect the underlying intelligence which is guiding us. You can see a greater, you can feel part of something greater than your isolated existence. And so naturally, when you are on a pilgrimage or on a spiritual journey, that there is more openness to that. And but that doesn't have to cease on the pilgrimage. It doesn't have to just be there. It ultimately, as you said, the pilgrimage is an inner journey, and if one stays with that, then one finds one's life has more synchronicity than randomness. For randomness is nothing but our inability to detect unity, right? So our life seems just chance and random and accidental, where there is less resonance. Whenever there is more resonance in life, we will find things falling into place. And that gives a very deep, calm inner confidence. You know, it's not a confidence which has to scream and which comes through overpowering some adversary, some opponent, but it's a confidence which is born out of your inner realization of the underlying unity. That's, I think, an essential part of one's growth on the spiritual path or on themselves. This ability to detect synchronicity. And if one follows it, I always say that when you have synchronicity, sometimes you might see the meaning and sometimes you might not. But what is important is to really take note of it in your heart and really acknowledge it. I think acknowledgement of these, your ability to detect, when you're able to detect these experiences or these pointers where you can draw the line of unity, you must always take a moment and pause and acknowledge and locate greater gratefulness in your heart, for that enhances your ability to draw them more in your life. And one should be aware of when one is sharing of that you are sharing only with those who have the ability to understand. So because in the sharing, otherwise, if you are seeking validity and somebody just brushes it, then you lose the sanctity of it. Because we live in a times, where you're making a podcast now, and which is beautiful that we live in a times to share, and we can share and tell our stories to people far and wide, and those who are ready to hear can be positively influenced by that. But also there is a flip side where we are living in a oversharing time, where in this sharing we might be seeking validation. And so I've seen a lot of time people who have such experience, but then it gets brushed aside when they shared it with someone, right? It got brushed aside, and it created now doubt in them whether they had a genuine experience, or then they start doubting that ability, so they then stop paying attention to it. So I think it's very important to, as if you want to grow that ability to, when you have these experiences, to pause and acknowledge and have a gentle inner recognition of it and live in gratefulness and anchor that, knowing that, okay, there is unity here. And then you are able to detect the flow of grace for whatever you acknowledge grows. Yeah. Without hesitation. I think it really is sweet when you can detect that, because it's really a terrible life to live in a universe which is an alien, right? It's to live in a kind of a industrial wasteland, or to live in a place where your whole existence is a mistake. I think that's really not a great recipe for a successful life. The field should be our ally, and synchronicity is one of the great pointers to that.
Could you speak a little bit more to sharing, like in that context that you share right now? Because it is something that is so prevalent in our world, in our society, and we have these big experiences, these big journeys, and wherever it is, we want people to understand what we've been experiencing. It's definitely something that I also see in the context of the Camino, where people go through a huge experience in their life. Something opens, and they want people in their lives to understand.
I think one has to be patient with it. Often there is an impatience. What I mean by that is like the individual hasn't understand the significance of the experience. They haven't settled fully in it. And so there is a rushed sharing sometimes because they haven't yet fully embodied it. In their sharing, there is a sense of seeking still. And often then it can be met by a disappointment of not being understood. Because there is an underlying expectation there. And so one has to be, because whoever the individual you're telling to, they might not have been on that journey with you. And so, since it is an inner journey, it is very difficult to, because the individual, when you're telling your transformation story, they have a particular image of you. And so, when you go back, it's just that the image returns. And so, you have to give them space. You have to give yourself space to embody it, gain deeper understanding. And so, then the sharing is not for you to gain validation, gain acceptance, or like, hey, did it really happen? It's not a kind of an ego thing anymore. Your sharing is only to gain unity, include this person in your experience, or to inspire them and to show them the possibility, because the self is you. So that it becomes more as a tool of to inspire, to serve, right? And so that requires a certain level of patience, in the sense that you have to be not so rushed with it. So if you are truly changed and you go back to your families, then you should ask them about them. Because how they have been, and how can you should really share from your presence, so they feel, oh wow, there is something different. This being is more loving and more present, and there is something different about this person, and then they are more open to what you have to share, versus you just going and not giving them space to feel the shift in your I amness, but just using words to paint a picture. So you have to let your presence speak first, and then slowly less is more sometimes. That's my, through hundreds of people who have come through here, it's an advice, I think, which is very helpful.
Yeah, I mean, this is a question that I would probably ask later in the in the interview or in the conversation, but it's such an important one, and in the context of this sharing, but also returning home. I mean, these big experiences, things are awakening, enlivening in our life, and I guess from what I see in the thousands of people that I've met along the way, it's probably the biggest missed opportunity of their journey is how they return, their returning Camino. And I think it's relevant for us here too, as we go through our teacher training here and returning home. But what is supportive to people who are looking to really live their learnings, integrate, assimilate, and continue on their journey rather than leave that experience behind in the past?
You see, if someone is taking that journey of self-discovery, the distinction between a journey as the walking path and journey that is being experienced here is that there is a fundamental technology, practices, and teachings which are very clear, which you bring with yourself. And so the path goes with you. And so the path then is no more a geographical location. And that's what everybody, even you are on a pilgrimage, ultimately that's what you have to realize, that the path is not the geographical location. Of course, there is a value to that, and it has its own place to help facilitate an opening. But the journey has to continue, and the continuation requires a certain level of path, a certain path. And path, in our tradition, we speak of the path as a certain commitment to your own spiritual practice, to have that continuity. For when you have that continuity of sadhana, then even when the scene changes and you might have certain responses to the change in scenery on an emotional feeling level, that's very natural, you know. But if you have that inner practice, then you stabilize, and then you start to integrate, and you, in that new scene. And what that is important to realize is to not get into this idea of this thought of I'm going back, because that's just a memory. You are not going back. You're just going here, and you're actually moving into the future, or rather, the future is moving into you. So this identity of, oh, when we go back, that's just an anxiety-loaded idea. Nobody is going back anywhere. Even if you try, you can't. So all you travel to is to the present only. And the present is ultimately shaped by your own consciousness. So you require technology for your consciousness. And when you can have that in place, and part of experiences like these and Camino is always building a community. So then community, now we have, you can be in touch with people non-locally. You don't have to be in the same physical space. So having access to that Sangha non-local can be also very helpful. And dedication to carving out time to have your own journey, consistently, then things start to all fall into place. One of the things we always also, which is helpful, is when people go to the new now, into what they call home, is to change things, because your brain is your mind is a creature of habit. And if it goes back to the same habitual and starts to go into the same loop, same familiar, then before you know it, the habit energy takes over and you slip into the habit energy. The same coffee and the same newspaper, the same channel and the same schedule. Do you follow? And so you find that there is that habit energy taking over. So now this new experience recedes into the background because the habit energy has been with you for long. It got a break for, let's say, a month or two, but it's been there. Still, the circuitry is hardwired. So when you land into the location which you call home, it is helpful to make the familiar and familiar, by shifting small things, whether how you design your day, to what time you get up, to if you go to you have some regular places you go to, change them. If you take a regular route to work, shift that place, take a different route. And have a commitment, like we always say here, have a commitment of like take on a sadhana of 40 days or something. Because short-term goals, we should always have short-term goals, long-term vision in life. Long-term goals are useless. Long-term vision and short-term goals. Short-term goals and elegant fulfillment of short-term goals gives you winning energy. You gain confidence and you feel, okay, you gain your respect. So there is not an insecurity. And so the issue with long-term goal is that it's always in front of you. And so it doesn't give you energy, but rather keeps you in anxious state of trying to get there, but never getting there. So we should always have short-term goals, and the short-term goals should serve the long-term vision, which includes the here and now. But short-term goals are very helpful. And so that is where tapas, taking a 40-day or 54-day commitment to a certain intention and to a certain structure of your life, to certain pouring of energy into yourself, whether it is the morning sadhana at a very early hours of the morning. We give very specific instructions for that. I think that can be very helpful if you give yourself that time. at least 40 days or something like that when you land. Then you can really take this time to integrate all that you have acquired. And also keeping the familiar, unfamiliar. You have to convert the familiar into unfamiliar. It's just very slight changes. Even changing the decor can help, right? What symbols are there? All of that can play a role. Micro adjustments.
And the time, taking the time is essential. I mean,
Absolutely.
something that's interesting in the context of a pilgrimage is that traditionally people would walk from their home or wherever they started, typically in their home. They would walk to their destination and then they would walk home the same distance, the same amount of time. And now, we're got to make the date and I've got a plane to catch because I've got things to do. And so I feel that the time is something that we really miss
Yeah.
a lot in that.
And slowing down, right? Because one of the things with the unconscious habit energy is that you're just going through the motion and it happens quite fast. So you have to bring greater awareness into your life. You have to slow down for a certain period of time. You don't want to be in that pace your whole life. But for the certain committed time, in the beginning, at least 2-3 weeks, you just be a little bit intentional in every activity, a little bit more alert. And whether eating or, just a little bit slower, that helps this new awareness to start to seep through into that day-to-day living. It starts to penetrate. If you're too, or multitasking and all of that, then the mindless activity energy takes over. We have to cultivate an energy of awareness, and that requires a little bit slowing down, and also definitely not multitasking and creating that scattered energy in the brain.
From one Camino to another, or from one pilgrimage from Spain, the internationally famous pilgrimage, to here, possibly one of the oldest, most traveled pilgrimages in the world along the Ganga River, heading up to the sacred high Himalayas. And as I understand, literally would pass the front door of Sattva, where we are. You spoke a little bit about pilgrimage. What is it to take a pilgrimage, and especially in the aspect of the spiritual journey? Like, why have for millennia people taken pilgrimages, and how are they relevant today?
See, all pilgrimages always are part of the tapas, right? So there was always an intentionality. There was a very intentional letting go of certain creature comforts at times or certain habit energy. So all pilgrimage represented an opportunity of breaking some habit energy. Yes. And cultivating new, more upward moving, progressive habits, rituals. That's what pilgrimage is ultimately. What we call sacred rituals are just upward moving habit energy. Over a period of time, habit energy takes over and starts to create a sense of numbness to life. So the pilgrimages were part of the spiritual traditions to create a discontinuous event of scenery, a discontinuous event. So even coming here, being here, that becomes a pilgrimage, that you create a discontinuous experience. Whether you go on a retreat or any of these experiences create a possibility of discontinuity from your whole continuous life. And evolution always requires a discontinuous element to it. You cannot just have continuity. So has to be certain discontinuity of environment where you are now in a different way. You're not stuck in the same I amness, same role, the roles that you are playing. You give yourself the opportunity to show up in a totally different way. And that showing up in a different way itself opens up a phenomenal possibility of self-knowledge, of growth, of transformation. And so pilgrimages have an important role in that. And so you would walk, most of the pilgrimages now were used to be walking. And in that walking it became a walking meditation, right? So in one of the meditations that one of the practices was, even Buddha talked about it, taught it was just walking in meditation. And it becomes a great practice for silence and getting to be in that clear space. And the whole point of pilgrimage is really leaning in the direction of greater unity, right? It's again a short-term goal. So pilgrimages, when taken, they have a short-term goal, meaning you are getting to a location and you have a very clear. So there is a certainty to it, to the journey you are taking, while there is uncertainty to what may arrive. But you're always on your way. And so it becomes a great metaphor for life. For then we can see a life as a whole, a pilgrimage. And so you're always on your way to your destination. You're always being guided, come what may. And that's the whole point of the pilgrim, right? And as you're headed to the direction, there is the inner ability to face whatever arises and succeed in getting to your destination. But that destination, again, all that you're logging in between, every challenge on the way to your destination, when you're give it a context of pilgrimage, becomes worthy. You actually will meet people who are on pilgrimage who might be experiencing a certain challenge, and they find great meaning in that challenge because they have now, the context of this challenge is they're on a pilgrimage. Do you follow me? Like I meet, so many people. You go up in Kedarnath and all these high Himalayas, I would meet people. We would go there often. But there was people who it was their first and last time that they were coming there. They're walking on the Kedarnath, it's about 15,000 feet. And there are some people coming from the desert of India, Rajasthan. They have never climbed a mountain in their life. And this is a high mountain. And Kedarnath has its own weather. It changes sometimes. It starts to rain and it becomes dark. And a lot of them were wearing flip-flops, and just a blanket and a stick. They had no dry fit clothing or hiking boots, nothing. And they're just walking along. And they're obviously having a struggle, right? They're struggling. It's tiring. And when you're at that altitude and the weather is dropping, the temperature is getting very cold and it might rain anytime. And you still know at that time, there was no chai shops or like a place you could rest. So you are in this mountain now and you still have about 10 kilometers to go. And you have to traverse, at least you have to climb a few thousand feet. And you have never climbed. And you meet them, there is a profound peace. There is not like they're denying the challenge. They're accepting the challenge. They know you ask them, oh, is it difficult? Yes, it's so difficult. But they're smiling. And they're hurting. Oh, it's very cold, but they're smiling. Why? Because they say they're on a pilgrimage. And they expected the challenge to come. And so their challenge gains a whole different meaning. And so those pilgrimages create this opportunity for us. For us, like every journey, when you're doing a journey, certain practices are challenging. But when you have a clear intentionality that you're doing that in order to grow within yourself, then your relationship to challenge alters. And to be a sane human being, how do you respond to challenges or to events or experiences which might not be within your field of your expectation? How you respond to them? Where do you go? Says a lot about who you truly are. And so it's a great teaching in that sense also, right? That you are on your destination, and every challenge that arises, it's part of the journey. And the true pilgrim never stops till he or she gets to their destination. And then every challenge, the cold, the isolation or the tiredness is part of the cleansing process. It's the tapas, it's the tapa. And that's why I say, even when people go up, to the Himalayas, now there's some places they have helicopter. There is no reason to go. You're not going to gain anything if you're going to go to the mountains and now you're going to go on a helicopter. Unless you are very, very elderly and it's part of your faith system and you have not too much biological life left, okay. But, for the most who can walk, they should go walking and they should climb and face that. That's the whole point of the pilgrimage. The pilgrimage is not, oh, how can I get there fastest? That's the reason why in the Himalayas, all these pilgrimage places were designed far off, right? That you had to go there and there is a certain tapas involved. Like even when we go to Badrinath, which we are going in October, we go there, we'll go up after Badrinath to these places, right? So it becomes part of your inner journey. You get up at 3, 4 in the morning, you go to sadhana. So there is a certain level, you have to, an extra level of commitment that you draw in from yourself, which creates an energy which can then see you through for a long time. Yeah.
That image of people climbing in flip flops in the high Himalayas has to be inspiring for someone walking through Spain. Trying to find the next village 3 kilometers away. I'll definitely take it. What are the things that support us in being able to meet the challenge? If we've had past experience of meeting a challenge in our life, that we have an awareness of what we're able to face and to achieve. For someone who's feeling doubtful, who's going into the relative unknown for the first time and meeting these challenges, what advice would you have?
You have to prepare. You have to prepare accordingly. The preparation is not from the point of view of accumulating some stuff, but to realize the challenge is directly proportional to how capable the individual is. And the capacity on that level, we all have infinite capacity. We just do not know how to unlock it. And so you have to have preparation to unlock that potential. And you require proper inner preparation. And that being said, when the challenge do arise and you have a little fear arise in you or a little low arise in you, one has to realize that is all part of the path. Because a lot of time there is this judgment that arises that when you feel scared and then because the fear arises, then you judge the fear itself. You become afraid of fear itself. And so that becomes a trap, you see. So it's very natural when you lean in the direction unfamiliar that your habit mind might feel a certain resistance and it will come up as fear. And that's when one knows these are just natural reactions of the lower mind, then it's just like it's a swinging door. It doesn't do much. And you keep on. And that consistency, those who are the staying power gain the deserving power. When you are in it for life and you have that inner knowing that the only way you know is to keep leaning in the direction of growth and becoming a better being, better version. And when I say better, it's not from a place of self-hatred, but we are on a journey, and this journey of self-realization, and we are moving more and more in the direction of self-awareness. And when you know that you are committed to that deep vision, you are anchored in that, and that is a guiding power to your life, then you cannot come out of defeated. Right? That's the first dharma. And what is the great teachings of Krishna to Arjuna is yatho dharma tatho jaya. Wherever there is dharma, there is victory. And one of the primary meanings of dharma is this inner commitment to self-growth, to self-awareness, to this commitment to keep leaning in the direction of unity within oneself. And any individual who has that deep commitment within themselves cannot be defeated. Cannot be defeated because no matter what comes, they'll just use it to grow. They convert it to growth. So how do you defeat someone who refuses to be defeated, who has no concept of defeat, who only has concept of lessons? You cannot defeat such a person. And so when you become that person, you're fearless. That does not mean you will not have fear. To be fearless does not mean to not have fear. To be fearless is to face fear and to embrace it and to not judge yourself for being afraid, and yet keep moving forward. And then that fear energy converts into enthusiasm, and you find that fear converts into supercharging. That becomes the Kundalini. See? And so we have to embrace fear. There has to be an embracing. Fearlessness is the embracing of fear, not absence of fear. When you embrace it, that then you convert it. Then you convert it into that absence of fear. See? But you must first embrace it. and develop, your inner practice. Like you, without having a personal culture, just think we can just think our way cunningly through life. For most people, it doesn't work. So you do require proper preparation. You have to back yourself. If you're not backing yourself, then you'll always find a reason and justify. But ultimately, you have to back yourself if you want to really go ahead.
And how important is in that preparation the role of a teacher, and how does one connect with the right teacher?
There is no such thing as a right teacher. There's just the teacher for you. This right teacher, just be the right student. It's like, everybody's looking for the right teacher, right guru. There is no such thing. You be the right student. And when you're the right student, you get the right teacher. It's as simple as that. You see, it's like be the right child, then your parent becomes right. It's about self. And when you are that, you draw that towards you. We all need teachers, mentors, guides. No one has to do it alone. We have to embrace our aloneness. That is important. It is as much an alone journey, but one cannot do it alone. But one has to embrace one's aloneness. But we are not meant to go on this journey alone. Even the wise masters of the Himalayas who have taken time in seclusion, they take time in seclusion, but they also have a community. They have their teachers. So there is a phenomenal advantage to have people who you're willing to learn from. It's really more about that, who you're willing to go and ask the right questions. You see? And I always say, what questions you ask, your life becomes an answer to them. So, and the question is asked by the student. And that's why we say, be the student, who asks the right questions. For whatever questions you ask, your life will start to become an answer. And so I think it's of great importance to identify your sources of learning and then become the best student you can. And becoming a best student is really one of acts of great self-love. And then I can see that from my own journey, right? For me, Maharaji was there, but who I am through is his, all this support and guidance and teaching. But also, I showed up consistently. I always was dedicated to be the best student I could. I was passionate about learning. And so I think we must focus on that and identify. I think it's very helpful to reach out and then be sincere to yourself. If you can't be sincere to yourself, you're living in a self-hatred, You can never gain your respect.
Often pilgrimages are very associated with religion and seeking God. And I'm wondering if you can share with us the difference between believing in God and experiencing God.
See, belief is only required pending discovery, right? Let's say someone goes on the pilgrimage of Camino de Santiago, and they have heard this story about Santiago, that there is this place called Santiago, and that this road ends there, and then this pilgrimage finishes. So they might, let's say this is pre-internet era, so they had not seen Google map of it and people's Instagram posts about it. They do that on the Santiago also? Okay.
Yeah.
And so let's say they hadn't seen reports, such vivid reports of people which had to their minds confirmed the location of this place. And so all they had to go by was some anecdotes of some people who had taken this journey. And let's say these are the beginners, the pioneers of this route. And so in order to, somebody might have heard this resonated, okay, wow, I want to do that journey. But now they need belief that there is a place called Santiago because they have never been there. And so they need that belief. Why? Because they do not know. And so that belief is helpful to help them take action. And it is only helpful because they do not know. Now, someone who wants to go on Santiago, they don't need to believe that there is a Santiago. They need to believe in their own ability that they can do it. And again, why do they need to believe in their ability? Because they haven't done it yet. So belief is only an absence of knowledge. And it is relevant. It is only relevant if it helps you take action to move in the direction of converting this belief into knowledge. Pending discovery, and belief is relevant. But if this belief stays the same and it does not convert into knowing, then it can be a handicap. So let's say this person who had a resonance, okay, I'm going to go to Santiago and I'm going to believe there is a Santiago, but never takes the journey to Santiago, but walks around the world believing there is a place called Santiago. What use is this belief? And this person goes wherever they go, they keep talking about Santiago, but they have never been there. All they have is a belief. And then someone who has been there says, it's not exactly like what you tell them. He gets angry. Because he has been believing now for so long, he has built his own identity on telling stories about a place he has never been to. But he believes in it. And he has structured now his whole identity around this belief. And so belief can be dangerous there. We cannot exist without belief. Belief is important. But it's a tool. We must learn how to utilize it. Belief is extremely essential to help us move in the direction of knowledge. Then we must verify that knowledge at the level of experience. When God converts from belief to experience, then even if someone says no God, it doesn't trigger you. Do you follow me? As long as you do not have the experience of God, then any idea of God which is outside of the structure of thought that you are holding on to as belief will threaten you, because you do not have the experience. You just have a structure of thought you have hold on to. And if anyone creates any structure of thought which might be outside of it, and you don't have any experience, then it will threaten your structure of thought. So God as a belief structure can be helpful as a personal, but when as a social consensus generator, it can be a dangerous thing. But God as a possibility of the finest experience of relative reality on the inside is what bliss is made of. And so the pilgrimage can be that, right? Where you are taking the journey from and trying to convert that belief to an experience. And moving from belief to experience is freedom. You're freed. You're free now. And that's a very powerful place to be. So pending discovery, belief is very helpful. Pending discovery. But we must check within ourselves, what am I doing to convert this belief into knowing, to experience, right? Because again, belief points to a lack of knowledge in a certain direction. Yes, so like I might, on the path of the pilgrimage, every now and then you might feel, oh my God, I can't do it. It's so tiring. Oh, it's so cold. Maybe not inside. It gets cold there?
Yeah, it gets cold.
So let's say you say, oh, it's too cold, and oh, there is still 300 miles to go. And then the voice says, no, believe in yourself. You can do it. Yes? And you say, okay, I believe in myself. But then you keep sitting there. And you say, I'm a believer. Are you? And the person says, no. But they're walking. You are in the same place. And now you have put up a tent there. Believers sit here. That's the point. So, if that voice of belief came, then get up and walk. Right? That belief, the voice is only there so that you can grow. And then you said, okay, I believe I can do it. Then get up and do it. Then when you're doing it, then you're not believing anymore, because now momentum has taken over. So you don't have time to argue about people's beliefs and all of that. You don't have time for it. You have too much time when you're believing, you're not taking any action. You just sit in there, and now your whole identity is just belief. So you're interested in everybody else's business because you have so much energy. You're taking no action. You're the same person today. You're the same person 10 years from now. You're a believer. That's all. So belief is very important. It's very helpful tool. But to move in the direction of experience within the context of God, so important. To know God is freedom. And again, it's when we say know God, it's not about who is God. It's also what is God, not just who, because who presupposes a personality. What? Maybe that's a relevant question.
Mm.
Mm.
I guess also that sometimes the experiences of others or seeing the experiences of others are really fuel and can be inspiration for our journey. I mean,
Absolutely.
I remember having a moment walking a long distance and I was exhausted, and then a guy with one leg comes walking past, and a prosthetic, and he was 70 years old in the heat of the day, in the middle of the summer. It's an example, but there are inspirational examples and stories around us every day.
Absolutely. Yes.
Hmm.
And that's ultimately the life we want to live, right? You want to live a life that's an inspiration. That's the legacy you should leave this world. Because ultimately we are all weaving stories. And that's what we will become soon. We will become stories. Our bodies will not be found, but the stories we weave will be. And so we must ask ourselves, what kind of a story am I weaving? Is it a story which inspires? When people will tell, there will be a fragrance of inspiration? Or it'll be a story of how not to be? We are all weaving stories in the eternal timeline of this existence. So we were inspiring one.
I have another question. I share many practices with yoga practices with people on the journey along the Camino, and these sattva practices that we learn here that are diverse, comprehensive, integrative, with all sorts of people, first timers, people who've been practicing many years, and all the time I will hear, but this isn't yoga.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a particular idea of yoga in the West. I'm wondering if you can speak to that and I guess, how it came to be, this idea.
It's just one component. It's a reductionist approach, that's all. Again, which is an essential part of the yogic path. But there is a law in economics, like the bad currency puts the new currency out of the flow, And so you have to, when there is a new currency comes out, then it starts to get more circulated. And so when that circulation has reached a certain level of tipping point or critical mass, then that seems to become the go-to definition of what is. And so that's just a reductionist approach to look at one very limited aspect of yoga. That's all it is. And so as a teacher, that's wonderful. When you hear that, that's very good. That means you are bringing to the table something they aren't even aware of, right? So you have a lot more to bring to the table, which can help facilitate growth. And just incorrect, limited understanding is there. The whole path of yoga it's vast. It challenges your intellect. It is demanding on that level. But when you take just a isolated part, it seems you can remain the same. And so you can be practicing, but you also are the same person. But now you cannot call yourself a yogi also. So a lot of time that has happened in the yogic path, where they have taken on some reductionist part of it, where they can maintain their identity and still have this checkbox. Okay, I practice yoga also. Like I take vitamin D. And so it's like, okay, yoga check, oil pulling check. And so And it has its relevance within a certain narrow parameter. It's like you have a jet and you're using it like a bullock cart. And so that's yoga. Yoga is like a jet. It can take you, and you just are drawing, using it as a bullock cart. And then someone comes on a jet and flies off. And it's like, what? That's not jet. Jet is supposed to be on the road. Well, like, it's not. What you are doing is you're just flying. You're using the jet for what it is designed to do. And now you have to explain to the person who was using the jet as a bullock cart all this time. And you have to tell them, oh, why? And what, the jet, it is designed to fly and take you from, across the ocean. And so why take the jet in the first place as a bullock cart? So I think the time is now. More and more teachers are teaching integrated approach around the world, like yourself. And that's where the real magic of yoga is when you can have that. And that's why people say that, oh my God, they had a profound experience, or they will have, oh, I've never experienced anything like this. What is this? Yeah. So it's a pointer too that they're experiencing something far greater that they might have not experienced going day in and day out and just doing only Surya Namaskars and different variations of it, or being locked in a hot room, looking at themselves, hating their bodies, calling it hot yoga while being with a very angry teacher. Like, why would you do that? It's like a terrible idea executed really well. The whole hot yoga thing. It's the strangest thing. Hot yoga, they discovered it in Hollywood. So it's a pointer towards only progress when people have that experience. So reductionist interpretations happen. Incorrect knowledge is easier to be circulated in the beginning because it is not demanding for anything. Any body of knowledge you take, there will be more incorrect understandings of it than correct understandings. Whether you take quantum mechanics or you take religion, do you follow me? You will find more people understanding it incorrectly and then being shocked when someone says to them, well, this is not what it means. So it's just the way knowledge flows. Yeah.
The first time I stepped into these grounds here 8 years ago, within a few minutes of being here, I was in the Shiva Hall in a journey. And it was a really, as you know, as many of you understand and have experienced daily, it was a really deep, profound experience. And I came out of there and I said, I don't know what this is called. I don't know anything about yoga anyway, so that was pretty easy. I don't know what it's called, but I feel good. I'm in and I want more, essentially. Anandji, thank you so much for this meeting, for this sharing. It's full of endless wisdom that we can take on our way, on our path. And personally, thank you for everything over these years, for the sharing and the guidance. It's been a big journey and I am eternally grateful. So thank you.
I'm grateful for all of it also. Grateful people have great lives. So, and as long as we are backing ourselves with our sincerity, then there is invincibility there. Then you are, every step you take forward, the deity, the destination that is the pilgrimage comes towards you more also. You take one step and it takes 5. The momentum takes you over after a while.
Muchas gracias for tuning in. Wisdomoftheway.com is where you can sign up for our newsletter for transformative walking retreats, courses, and free practices. Also, please leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. so that we can bring you more stories of these inspiring caminos. Many blessings for your inner and outer journey.